tonight?
Secretary of the day.
Right.
Conflict.
I think we'll officially call the meeting to order. Thank you, welcome. We're gonna go ahead and start off with the approval of the agenda while we wait for one more of our adorable pledgers to arrive. So any changes to the agenda? No?
No changes. I think we may have just received our last pledge ourselves.
Oh, okay. Do you want, we'll finish the agenda and then we'll move on. Okay, so I heard a motion from Mr. Walker. I need a second.
I'll do that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, on to the pledge, inviting Ms. Deely up to introduce. Oh, I need the box.
All right. We have 4 kindergarten students from Mrs. Frost's class and Mrs. Frost and Mrs. Frost's classroom assistant. Jenny as well, all here, and then obviously families. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. So you're just gonna say, my name is
Ross Eddington,
Perfect, and this is
Hayden Shane McCormick,
Parker and
Ellen.
Elowen. So, all right, are we ready? So they're gonna say the pledge. Why don't, before we say the pledge, why don't we have you tell what is the best part of kindergarten? Ross, what's the best part of kindergarten for you?
Going outside.
Hey. Playing outside. Okay, what else is the best part? Anything else you want to add, Ross? No? Oh, we're moving on to Cadence. What's your best part of kindergarten?
Meet my teacher.
Teacher, yep. Definitely, both of them, right? Parker, what's your favorite part of kindergarten?
You.
You want to share? No? All right, Elowen, go ahead. What's your favorite part of kindergarten?
Seeing my friends.
Seeing friends, right? So it's all about connections, relationships. It's all about your people,
Seeing my
right? So,
friends.
all right, well, let's do the pledge. Are you ready? So remember, we're going to be serious because this is a serious thing. The flag's over this way. All right. Whenever you're ready, Ross is going to get us started.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job, guys.
Wait a second.
I like when Parker
Hi, my name is Carrie. How are you guys? Good. You did so good. It was like perfectly timed, and I heard all the words. It was like the best pledge we've had. So I have a gift for you for being here and for doing that, and for sharing what your favorite things about kindergarten were. I wish I was still in kindergarten. Wow. Maybe I can come and visit sometime in your classroom? Yeah, because it sounds like you have a great set of teachers in there. And then also, who here has their siblings with them? I think I saw some. As the youngest sibling myself, I got dragged to things all the time. So who has brothers or sisters here? Me. Okay, here, you can give them that from us too. So thank you for coming. Thank you, Will. All right, we will move on with the less cute part of our meeting. Is the, is there one more?
Yep.
Missed one? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Payne. Moving on with the approval of minutes for public for February and for non-public, and then the deliberative minutes as well. I've never heard anyone say they want to stay before. I love that.
Where's that kid?
Yeah. That's amazing.
She has a future.
Yes, there's a chance.
Start designing your signs now. I make a motion to approve the minutes for February 4th, non-public February 4th, and the deliberative session
We gotta do it
minutes.
separately, Rick, unfortunately,
Oh, we
because
do?
I wasn't here for the meeting. I was only here for the deliberative.
Oh, all right, then I make a motion, we do the February 4th public minutes and the February 4th non-public minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain.
Love the eye contact.
Motion to approve the delivered minutes for February 8th of '25.
Second that too.
Excellent. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 We are going to give our high school representative, Mr. Amachuchi, a few more minutes because I know he's coming right from practice. So we're going to give him some more time. We'll come back to him when he gets here. Same thing with select board update as well. We're just flying through this agenda, everyone. So this is our first opportunity for public comment. And so we'll start with those in the audience if they'd like to come up and speak.
Oh, I actually have no comments. I'm here just to.
Okay. Sorry, as like literally the entire room looks over at you, sir. Okay. Yes. Okay. And then we'll move on to those online. We have a few. If you haven't ever used the feature before, just use the raise your hand feature and we will call on you. But if not, all right, we'll move on. There is a second opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting as well. So if you missed this opportunity, you can jump on board at the end. So we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Okay, that was quick to get to me. So, pretty concise report this month, which tends to happen following the hubbub of the budget process. From a hiring perspective, we have been seeking a speech language assistant all year, hopeful that one will surface. It is not a position that there just aren't a lot of them out there. So we'll keep searching, keep posting, and see what happens. It's probably been a good dozen years since the Special Ed Administrators Association put forward a program connected with an area college, encouraging paraprofessionals and other interested individuals to go through. So I'm just thinking that's something that Katie and I may want to poke at the association about to see if there's any interest in doing that again, because I know we have some people internally who would probably be interested in that. So anyway, we continue to seek that position as well as paraprofessionals within the district due to some resignations as well as some additional student identifications and move-ins. So we are managing. So financial update, it's sort of that time of the year where I ask Vicki to run the numbers and she holds her breath and then she starts not sleeping if they're not where she wants them to be. I would say in the time that I've been with the district, we're a little more concerned this time of the year than typical. It's just sort of been a perfect storm of a variety of things that have happened. Nothing that, we're not going to go in the red or anything, so nothing to that degree. Don't want to cause too great of a concern at this point, but we're certainly keeping a closer tab on things right now. We have had some move-ins with significant needs already in out-of-district placements, and when you heard Katie speak mid-year around the cost increases to out-of-district placements, they're close to $200,000 at this point, dependent on need. So that certainly, when you don't anticipate it in your budget, is fairly large. We just had a facilities committee meeting where we've had some unexpected facility repairs to do within the district as well. In addition to shortage of and increase in transportation needs. So when you have to transport outside of your district, our current bus company has challenges always doing those, depending on distance, and then we have to seek alternative companies. So we just have a lot of contracts out and about to meet student and family needs that we don't usually have this year. Let's see. Also, it's been a couple years since this has happened. We are 15 high school students over what we had budgeted for this year. So at approximately $20,000 per student, you can do the quick math there. That adds up quickly, right around $300,000. 9 of them were due to move-ins, and then the other 6 were students that had participated in different schooling, K through 8. So they were out living in Barrington, but out and about in other schools that we were not aware of. I would say that schools are getting better about notifying us. There is ruling out there. They're supposed to. They just don't always do that. And there's fewer restraints, regulations around even notifying when a student is homeschooled. So sometimes we get surprised. So this is one of those years. The good news is, as far as special education, student services, the high school students and facilities, this community has always been great about making sure we have capital reserve accounts to cover those, so they're not in areas within the budget that we aren't prepared for. So the impact, of course, would be assuming warrant articles all pass at the vote next week. We may not have, say, the $250,000 remaining in the budget to further fund our facilities capital reserve account, but we will manage that as it comes. So that's where we are financially currently. Policy, wow, it has been a year for policy. We've met twice this month instead of the typical one time, and we are just trying the best that we can to stay on top of all the changes. One example would be all the Title IX changes back in 2020. There were significant changes. It took us several meetings, lots of hours worth of work. So we've been living with those for the last 4 years, and they changed in 2025, and now they've changed back to the 2020 with some slight changes. So those are a good half dozen or so policies that are anywhere from 10 to in excess of 30 pages long, as they should be. They're very detailed and important, but they take up a lot of time and detail. So we are just we have a good, solid policy committee, and we'll just keep marching through the changes and doing what we need to do. So that's why the packets are so hefty these days, because policy is turning over very quickly. Wellness committee meeting got canceled due to snow. They are actually meeting this week, so we'll have an update when we meet 2 weeks from now for that. High school contracts, as we all know, we've got Dover and Oyster River agreements up for vote next week, and then we did just recently sign the 2-year memorandum of understanding with Co-Brown. That is currently back in the hands of the trustees, just waiting for signatures. So as soon as we get the new one, we will post that for the community. Same thing with teacher contracts, waiting for vote next week. And Portrait of a Learner. So I feel like we haven't talked about Portrait of a Learner for a little bit. Dave Cartoonin has a company, Cartoon Ed. It's not a great last name to then have a little play off your company. So he's been doing a lot of work with the School Administrators Association in the state, put together a video to talk about who New Hampshire is as a public education institution, what we represent, and has offered at a significant cost reduction to districts to take that video and personalize it. So as part of our NEASC process and working through those Portrait of a Learner characteristics, we had an initial meeting with Dave Cartoonin and one of his employees, Annie, to start looking at how we can bring that to Barrington. So we'll be able to put it on our website, and people will see, it'll be our pictures and our kids' voices. So I can't wait to have little kindergartners be reading those scripts. So, and again, I just want to make sure we give kudos to Elizabeth Talon for that. She really has been spearheading that work, and the staff will continue on March 11th as part of the PD Day. Most of their work is going to be science of reading, including preschool actually going to do some visits. Again, we're seeing an increase of autism students, so they're going to a local, blanking on whatever word I want. Center, sure, center works. To look at just how people and consultants are working with those higher need students. So I think it will be a great day of learning for teachers next week, but they will also be looking at communication as the first characteristics that they will start to do rubrics so that we have alignment, K, pre-K through 8, on what does that look like to be a good communicator as we send our students off to high school. So we are, it's easy to lose momentum on an initiative like that, so we're trying to make sure we stay on target with those goals. Town collaboration, given everybody's budget processes and whatnot, we have not had a meeting recently, so when I meet with Connor next, or I'll just give him a shout and we'll get that coordinated. Let's see, I feel like we have had every system review, every audit, everything that could possibly happen in Barrington has happened this year. I feel like I don't want to open my email anymore because someone's going to ask me for more information, or Vicky. So in addition to the Department of Ed moving to a new student information system, so we've got all our admin assistants right now really digging in and learning that new system. So the I4C that we've known and have used for decades now is no longer. So they are doing all of their prep work now and running initial tests and reports. I think in the end, everybody will be pleased because before we would run a beginning of a year and an end of year report and you didn't know until afterwards if there were was an error and you'd have to scramble around in this tight window to correct them all. And now it'll tell you right up front as you do the student entry if there's a problem. And it's also teacher entry too. You have to match certification area with the courses that they're assigned to. So in the long run, it will be good. It's just anytime you have to take your entire student information system and learn a new process and roll it over, it's quite cumbersome. Our retirement system went through an audit. Food service, we just went through an audit. So it has, it's been busy at the SAU level, busier than any other fall, for sure, on top of all the contracts that have been due. If you've looked at our website lately, you see that it continues to have little tweaks and upgrades, and visually, it's not only more appealing, but it also functions better and has up-to-date information, and we just keep picking away at that. Jeff and I met before the break as well to make sure that we can have a user-friendly way to show how we're inching toward our 5-year goals as well. So we're just excited to see all of that come together. So when we get a little bit closer, we'll walk you through some of the changes at an upcoming meeting. And that is all I have there for this evening.
Just I know that our landing spot is in flux, but would you say, if you projected it out right now, is the capital reserve fund for facilities in jeopardy right now, or just potentially in jeopardy?
I would say, I would comfortably say we would probably 200 of the 250 would be my comfortable prediction right now. In addition to that, and I'll bring this forward at the next meeting as well, I just printed out the information yesterday. We're seeing a significant change in families accessing education freedom accounts, and that will impact our revenues, which then impacts the bottom line of the budget as well. So I think some of you will recall a few years ago when they changed the Medicaid laws, we saw that impact with loss of revenue as well. So right now we have 54 students accessing education freedom accounts, and that's just under $5,000 per student. And then there's other factors that feed into the formula that I can explain further at the next meeting. But that right now is about a $272,000 difference in revenue that we typically have. So I'm cautiously hopeful.
So 200 to the 250 right now.
That's my, we always end up in better shape than we anticipate,
Well.
right? Knock on wood, I know, real wood.
Then now there's, in lieu of that, there's multiple capital reserves we could draw from if need be, so because we have unanticipated tuition, right?
Exactly.
So we could use that
Yep.
as well. All right.
Yeah, so I think we may have some decisions to make
Right,
this
okay.
spring that we don't typically we're like, shoo, we made it, we hit our mark, we landed where we thought, but we may want to look at that long-range capital reserve plan and where we hope to land over the next decade and make some informed decisions about that, as well as high school. We had done that about a handful of years ago as well, when we had a big influx of students.
Because, not that it's ever willy-nilly, but the thought of adding, there's a 10-year plan for that facilities capital reserve, right? So,
Right.
and if we don't fulfill it, we're going to have a shortfall at the end.
Well, and also, as we know, what something costs today is not going to be what it costs next month. So that plan is, we built in some increases because we know things go up each year, but that plan is kind of in real-time numbers, so it's already pretty close, pretty tight.
Okay.
However, we tend to be able to manage our money wisely year to year and complete some projects and not have to access capital reserve, depending, sometimes just like a student moves in and impacts your budget, sometimes they move out and impacts your budget in the other direction. So, yeah, we'll probably have some decisions to make this spring.
It's good to have options, though.
Yep. Yeah, and we do, which is great. So that's why I can sleep at night. Vicky, not so much, but. Yep.
Right, any other comments or questions? Okay, so we are going to just jump back a little bit. Welcome, Cole. Thank you for coming. And we'll welcome you to, the floor is yours to give us an update on Dover.
Okay, so we just got back from break, and there's been a lot of school, not functions, but a lot more get-togethers, because there's been a lot more sports games, basketball games, which have been a big place where the school comes together. And then they've also scheduled a few more dances for the end of the year. So they have a spring fling kind of dance for the whole school, all grades, for the end of the year, at the end of April. And then they also scheduled prom for juniors.
Nice, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
How was reset day?
Reset day? I couldn't attend reset day because I was out because I was traveling, but everyone said that they had a lot of fun and they were able to, there was 4 blocks during the day and you got to schedule them ahead of time, like we schedule our flexes. So you got to schedule any 4 blocks that you wanted, because we have 4 periods per school day. So then they used those periods and they made it into 4 different activity spots. So you got to schedule wherever you wanted to go for those 4 activities, and then everyone went with their friends and everyone had a good time.
What are you most looking forward to as the spring is coming up? Sounds like there's a lot of events. Is there one that's you're really looking forward to the most?
Not really. I just haven't experienced. I haven't experienced how it is at a different school district yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it's gonna be once it starts to get warmer and
We're all hoping for
yes.
it to get warmer. Oh, that's great.
You cheering for basketball? You guys perform during basketball games?
Yeah, we cheer on the sides.
What do you have a spring sport that you guys support? And
No, our season ends at the end of, not next week, but the week after, when we go to New England. Hopefully that we make it there. And then we just train during the end of the school year. So the last couple weeks of school, we'll start training for the summer, for the fall season. Yes.
Well, it sounds like you're very busy. And if there's nothing else, I also wanted to wish you good luck at regionals. Yes, this weekend.
Prelims
Okay.
to make it to states.
Well, we wish you the best of luck for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as always, you're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for rushing over, buddy.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Still no select board, so we'll just keep going on to correspondence grant award information.
Yeah, so I sent this to you all via email, but I wanted it to be in the public record as well. So every once in a while, different associations send us emails and say, hey, you can apply for a mini grant. So I had given this to Bridget, and we were awarded one of the mini grants with only 2 other districts in the state. So I thought that was pretty cool because it was a nationwide initiative. So we received $2,500, And given that we added a classroom up at the elementary school and also moved around some classrooms, we had a need for an additional Top Cat system. Garth's glaring at me.
Your favorite system.
Were they aware of what you were going to use it for before
Yes.
they awarded the
Yeah,
grant?
it actually had to, we made the connection, yes, they were. It actually fit the intent of the grant quite well. And I didn't need a pandemic to get
I'm really.
Yes. That's great.
Yeah. So that was pretty exciting. It's
That
nice
is exciting.
to get those little wins once.
If you're watching at home, it's a very worthy cause to put these in.
Mm-hmm.
Your friend Garth just has an unruly fear of Top Cat systems for some reason.
It's probably because we talked about it so much during COVID, so we have like a negative association
Probably
with
that.
it.
A little PTSD.
Yes, that's what we'll say.
So,
That's great.
Congratulations, nice work to everyone involved.
We were excited about it. So now I feel like compelled, like I have to tell people what they are. So
Oh,
like, humor me for a moment. Don't listen, Garth.
They're a slushy machine for the superintendent's office.
Right, yeah. Espresso, actually.
Oh, is that what it is?
So they are a sound field system that amplifies teacher voices. So a lot of times people view them as benefit to students with auditory processing disorders, attention disorders, but really it just puts the teacher's voice front and center for every kid in the classroom, regardless of where the teacher's standing. So you no longer have to write into student plans like, gain eye contact with the student, make sure you're standing in front of them before you speak. And when we purchased them, we had a handful of them in district, but they were speakers that you would hang on the wall. And these actually replace a tile up in the ceiling. And so you don't just get that point of sound directed in to the back of the students or in one direction. It just flows from the ceiling down, and they've been wonderfully reliable. Like
As someone who's
again, knock on wood, right?
in a room without them and then one with them back in the day, it was a dramatic difference. So, and I'm very
And-
loud, so
I was going to say, I don't think you need one.
Oh, will you stop?
No, until you're in one of the classrooms and actually hear them working, like you just are, you're buying microphones, but it's like, it turns the teacher's voice into the voice of God coming from the ceiling. So every kid in the room can hear it, and it's like, oh, pay attention, it's amazing.
And they're done with the right, I don't know, have all the proper language, but the right decibels, and so that it's really from a student with auditory
Yeah.
processing challenge, that it makes that teacher voice clear and present regardless of where they're standing in the classroom. So we are happy
great
to
win.
have them. Yeah, so that was a nice win.
Top Cat Company's happy.
All right, well, thank you. And please pass on our thanks to Bridget as well for that. Okay, moving on to board participation for the curriculum coordinator interview.
So just posted, so I don't have a pool of applicants at this point, but wanted to toss it out to you all to see if one or two wanted to participate in the process. I don't have dates or anything yet. I'm thinking that I might want to do the process a little bit differently than we have in the past. In the past, the entire committee has walked through the whole process, and I feel like, given that that position is such a classroom teacher forward-facing, student forward-facing position, we always have teachers, but I think I am considering having the initial committee do the larger and narrow down before SAU gets involved at that point, because I really want them to have a real strong, voice in the selection. So I don't know if anybody has a burning interest.
Burning, no, smoldering.
Smoldering, okay,
Depending on the time frame, I'd be interested.
great.
And we could
My-
always bring it back too when Moira's.
Yeah,
here, too.
I just texted Moira to see if she would be interested. Obviously, she's not sitting by her phone right at this moment. So
I can
yeah,
also
if we can
just put it back on
Yeah.
the next agenda too.
Yeah,
when
that
I
would be
have more
great if we're not on a
information.
huge
Yeah, I
time
want
crunch.
No, no.
her to miss out
Nope.
if she's.
My goal would be to bring finalists or ists, you just don't know yet, because we don't know what the applicant pool is going to look like, to the board at the second April meeting on the 15th, so that we know the candidates know prior to vacation where we are with that. So
Yeah, hopefully Moira's available. I know she has would be a great skill set for that type of position too.
Okay. All right, so I will bring that back around next meeting.
All right, moving right along to stipend proposals.
So I have two there. The first one is for Bridget, who is our operations manager, who has provided, she had done it in her past district and has provided a series of science of reading trainings, kindergarten through fourth grade, and she doesn't have a year-round contract, and it's very non-teacher, non-student facing position. So given the additional time and work required to do that, I looked at, so you can see the summary of activities there and the approximate time commitment. 6 full days of training at BES, 5 quarter-day trainings at the ECLC, which of course are days she's already compensated for. I just wanted you to know the time frame. But in reality, it's preparing 20 different presentations based on the pillars of reading, the science of reading, 2 hours of prep for each presentation, a minimum of 10 hours of research and background knowledge. So looking at the total and her per diem rate, I am recommending a $3,000 stipend for Bridget at the conclusion of this work, which will be after the March 11th PD day.
You have money within the budget to
Yes.
accomplish that?
One example would be, we all have contractually workshop and coursework money, and she's not taking coursework, so she actually has contractual funds she's not accessing that would more than cover that amount. We get close to $6,000 in coursework money if we were to take courses. So just as an example of where that could come from.
Are you looking, does this require a vote formal? Okay.
I mean, because it's financial and in addition to the contract, I think we should,
Okay.
Sorry for the stupid question. Is this an annual thing?
no.
So this is a one-off?
The other alternative would have been like come and ask for more days, but it wasn't about days, it was about the scope of work.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, seeing none, would entertain a,
I'll make a motion to give Bridget Conley the $3,000 statement.
a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
All right.
And then in the same vein-ish, one area that I've written as part of my goals is to really focus on the stipend committee process. We haven't had a means for staff to formally request, come forward, and so we've really done a lot of work over the last close to 2 years now with the stipend committee and just tightening up, creating processes. We really saw our after-school activities take a major nosedive during COVID, of course, and so now it's exciting to see them start to come back. This one is particularly interesting because it's all linguistics and language-based, which I think is fabulous, that students are showing this interest, and so it now gives us all that information that we sort of housed on a spreadsheet or in our brains instead of in a nice Google survey. So Duncan Stewart is one of our Spanish teachers, and he is looking to start a language inquiry. He's actually been informally, I shouldn't say informally, they're actually meeting during lunchtime, but there's such interest from students that he wants to make it a formal after-school club. So their students are participating during their lunch right now to do this. It would, going forward, it would be a year-long. So we looked at other amounts of stipends, how often they meet comparatively to what we already have. Would recommend for the year that it would be 800, but we would also obviously prorate it to about a third because we have about a third of the year remaining. And as part of the teachers' collective bargaining agreement, any new club proposal comes to you all. So here we are. And it would be 7th and 8th graders and 20 students in the group for 45-minute sessions twice a week. Questions or comments?
These proposals, do they, I'm new to this part, do they go through a committee first, is that what you said? And then if the committee supports it, it comes to
Yep.
us?
Yeah, so that's sort of how the amount is determined and, whether people think it's a viable offering for students. A lot of times we ask for it to be run, not necessarily a full year, but for a session to gauge interest, because you don't want, not that you don't want it, but you don't necessarily want 2 kids showing up and a teacher receiving a full stipend when somebody down the hall has 25 kids. So
Right.
you want to gauge interest and sustainability before we officially put it on the stipend list. So he's been doing it during lunch, so we felt pretty confident that he's already gauged that interest and commitment from students.
So he's got approximately 20 kids that are interested in, wow.
Semantics and linguistics and
Is it Spanish driven or is it just not
he
Spanish?
actually has a linguistics degree.
Oh,
so
really? Okay. And there's 20 kids that want to do this after school.
It's great.
Faith in our youth. Look at
one of them.
I know.
It's not even
How
Latin.
often is that reviewed, like the viability and popularity of, is it just, it's like annually?
Historically, it hasn't been.
Oh, okay.
So,
But
to
it-
be honest, so that is part of kind of the structure and the procedure that we've been trying to create around stipends. Is people always felt like, oh, that's just for the middle school. It's just sports. It's and so we've made sure we've had other building representation on it for the last couple of years, so that people know like anybody can start a
Right.
club. It's easiest at the middle school. Kids are more independent, and then they also have the late bus.
Right,
So it's a
yeah.
little more challenging, but we're also trying to get the after-school enrichment program going back up here again, because that was
Really popular, too.
highly attended
Yeah.
in the past, yeah.
Is that $800, and I'm just saying this because I know we haven't had in-depth conversations, and so I just kind of want this on the record, that the $800 calculation was based off of the new algorithm that the committee worked on
Yes.
to identify how much, the overhaul of what the value is for.
Right, comparatively to other established clubs and how often they meet, how many students, and length of time.
Perfect. All right. Barring no further questions or comments from the group.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Lang Inc. Club.
Excellent. Can we get a second?
I'll second it.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Continuing to move.
VHS club is still meeting.
VHS, yeah, the VHS club is still meeting. That's
Betamax one.
Betamax died out finally.
All right, moving to give Ms. Deely the floor for principal's report.
Yeah, so you have it in front of you. I'll just kind of highlight a few things. I'm not going to reread it for you or anything, but we did have, in terms of enrollment, we did have the lottery on Monday, and actually, we didn't really need a lottery. So everybody who filled in the form to be in the lottery received an email saying they have 2 weeks to fill out the registration information and their kiddos can attend. So I think a barrier is, I've thought about this, like why? Because we used to have, we had the wait list and we needed the lottery, but I think a barrier, from what I'm hearing, is that parents need full day care. So, so anyway, that's happening. We're at about 150 students in the building. We still are getting preschool referrals. We have 3 in process right now. We're still screening students whose parents, believe that they may have some language delays or other delays. In kindergarten, we have kindergarten information night coming up the 27th, so we will have lots of groups come that night. The rec comes, the library comes, the Barrington School Foundation comes. We have bus company there, cafeteria comes, so that families can get lots of answers to lots of questions. The kindergarten team will be there, say a quick hello, and I have a presentation that I put forward. So that will be, we're registering kids all over the place in both grade levels. So that's happening. MTSSA progress, we just met and looked at student data again, so we're in cycle 4 now, which is crazy, 4 out of 5. So we have 13 students that are receiving Tier 2 intervention in for reading. Let's see, what else do I want to highlight? Haven, we had them come, that was the first time. That was a result of Bree Thomas, our new counselor, just looking at things with a new lens and bringing new things, which was great. Same with Random Acts of Kindness Week. Progress towards our goals. We had our secure campus drill, and we're going to do a lockdown drill. And one thing that happened today is we got all our new radios. So I'm thinking about how we might be able to test those radios during the lockdown, because now we have access to communicate with police and fire. I'm just curious how all that works, so I might play with our radios that day and see what happens. So that's why I'm looking at you, Rick. Community events, lots of them, some new ones. I'm excited to bring the Tiger Theater Company to the ECLC. They've been around for years. When I was assistant principal at BES, we had them come a couple of years, but it's been a while, so they're coming, and they have a play they're going to do called Kindness Counts, and I've invited the first graders to come back and watch it with us, so we have a little reunion with them, which will be fun. Also, Steve Blunt, I've always wanted to have like a little rock and roll concert at the ECLC. We got the stage and all, so Steve Blunt is a great children's musician that's going to come towards the end of the year. That's new. Not on here is our, each trimester we have an Owl's Nest Open Woods, so that'll be happening March 17th. Right after school, we found if we do that for an hour, we get great participation. And also new is typically we've taken kindergarten to a play, but this year what we're going to do is Mrs. Kabicki has arranged for kindergarten's going to go to BMS, and we're going to get a little 45-minute preview of their school play. So it's just a nice another community connection. We really wanted to find more ways to connect the ECLC to the middle school, and you know, so that's going to be fun. I just want to thank publicly Four Winds Institute. I applied for a grant through them, and they kindly and generously gave us $1,200 to install a permanent story walk. So typically we put stories on the trail, and the kids walk through and you know, read the stories, and we hang them from trees and whatnot. But we're going to have permanent posts, and then we're going to have 4 stories to begin with, and we're going to get them like really hardcore laminate so they can withstand all the weather, and they'll be Velcro to the posts. So we'll have one for each season. Eventually, the way story walks can work is you then can make them, the stories, a part of your library's circulation, so that if, you know, other areas, spaces, groups wanted to have a story walk, they could go check it out and put it on there. So kind of starting at the ECLC, and you know, with a dream that maybe it'll expand throughout the community, so wherever children go, they will be reading. So I just wanted to just highlight a little bit too. I've been doing lots of walkabouts, mini observations, and today, you know, I went through the classes, and like I just felt like I really wanted to share. Last time I was here, I really wanted to highlight the behavioral part of what's going on at the ECLC, and that continues, but I just felt like it would be nice tonight to just give you a little visual of what I got to experience today as I walked into Kim Hamer's room and just saw, this was in the 3-year-olds in the morning, and just, you know, even from 2 weeks ago to now, just really seeing students following directions. I mean, little people, you know, like just following directions. They were doing some movement that required, you know, stop, start, kind of Simon Says, and they were just all on. listening. They're, just for longer periods of time. Kim transitioned them from one place in the room where they're, up and dancing and moving to the carpet. And boy, they all just settled in there, listened to a book. And I was like, wow, like it was really exciting. So then I went down the hall to kindergarten, and it was writing time. And I went into Kaylee Tor, our new kindergarten teacher's room, and Callie Cole, and just watching, these kindergartners write. I mean, they came in, right, with limited ability to do that. And I walk in and they love to show me their work, and they're reading to me 2-3 sentences they've written, and I'm looking and I'm like, I could actually read it too. Like, I don't say, why don't you read that to me? Because I really have no idea what it says. I can read them. Just the spacing in the sentences. They're doing uppercase to begin. They were putting periods at the end, and it was just really exciting. And then this afternoon I went back to preschool to see the 4-year-olds in Alicia Zink's room, and again I was like, wow, she's doing foundations lessons and just making it super fun. The kids she put all the letters in the circle. Kids are around it, and she gave the students had to go get a letter, bring it back, but they had to go with their arms up, get the letter, and then walk backwards, and so all this direction following. And they knew the letters, they knew the sounds of the letters, and then she transitioned into a Haggerty lesson. And again, like to see the students recognizing beginning sounds, being able to blend words, segment words in, with 4-year-olds, it was really impressive. So I think we're on this really fun 8-week kind of stretch where we get to see sort of all the labor and the intensive work kind of come to fruition. So it's nice to see, increased independence, just stronger social skills, like you saw tonight, like these really deep friendships, improved conflict resolution skills, just, great confidence that they have at this time of year. Concepts that were once really challenging are just more natural to them. And, their communication has become more refined. They're just expressing themselves more. I had a great conversation with one of the students who came to us as a 3-year-old with very minimal language skills. And I said, hey, how was vacation? Good. What did you do? I went to the trampoline park, and, I went to the playground. And I was like, wow, like I'm having a conversation with this little person. So to see that. And yesterday I walked out with a student, and he's just always so joyous. And he came out, and we're walking together. He goes, I love this temperature. It's my favorite temperature. Yeah, like, what temperature is it? He goes, the cold one. So like just being able to converse with students, and they have humor. It's just, they are taking more responsibility for their learning, ownership of their work. Using the tools well, the routines and procedures. The teachers have worked so hard to maintain those all year, and the students now just are following class expectations. So it's just, we're not at that period where after April it'll be like, what's next, right? What's first grade going to look like? I'm going to kindergarten. We're not there. We're in this just sort of like moment of time where we're just enjoying them and their new growth, and just watching the fun and kind of that positive forward growth that they're having. So come play, because it's really a fun place to be. There's just some great conversations to be had. So that's what's happening at the ECLC. Imagine, if you saw the 4 of them, just multiply that by 150 of them, and that's the joy we experience each day.
The growth is super noticeable. I was there yesterday, and you can just stand in the hallways and go, wow, okay, they can do snow pants and boots and hats and mittens and gloves and like all by themselves now. And the teachers can actually stand there and engage in conversation instead of like all the clothing. So yeah, you forget until all of a sudden it all comes together. So it was really cool.
You really see it with the in the early learning.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting. So.
And then they get to high school and they forget how jackets and hats work.
Says the guy who left his scarf and gloves at the deliberative session.
I'm getting older. All right.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Deely? Thank you, and thank you for sharing the snapshot of the classroom. Hearing their giggles was just like so sweet. They were so excited. All right. Moving right along to our Ms. Rollins with our mid-year academic achievement data.
You did get this in your packet, but I know it was super tiny, so I printed it out in like really big paper. Because it's so hard to like pinch open and kind of get the full scope and sequence of the SAS data. So I'm not going to read verbatim what I wrote for you, but we will go through it. It's like 6 pages of what I was going to say tonight. So the first page is our Acadience data. So that is the early reading skills at the very top. I put for you, what that entails is like first sound fluency, segmentation, it's phonics, phonemic awareness. As kids get older, you have oral reading accuracy and comprehension. So what you're looking at here are the composite scores. So it's the overall scores of all the subtests put together. We had some really great growth in grade 1. We went from 64 to 87%, so I kind of dug a little bit deeper in that. Where grade 1 increase came from nonsense word fluency. So it's where students have to look at a word that's really not a word and say it. It's a really kind of a tough thing to do because it really segments what each phoneme is saying to them. Kindergarten's composite score was impacted by a decrease in first sound fluency. A lot of times this happens as students begin to blend words. They tend to forget that first is just a sound and then they'll just blend it together. So I'm not really concerned about that because their first sound fluency proficiency is like 91%. Their phoneme segmentation fluency scores are 91% fluent. So that looks excellent. And grades 3 and 4 increased proficiency in their oral reading and fluency accuracy by over 10%. All right, to the page. This next is the iReady performance. Don't forget this time of year, the yellow is students that are approaching at the beginning of the year. It's kind of where they're supposed to be because of the beginning of the year. But now the yellow is approaching expectations. Again, these are end of year.
Hold on just one
What do
moment.
we need?
So for there's a person in the audience. The data we're actually discussing is in the other packet. I heard a lot of flipping, and I was thinking, yes, yes, yep.
Yep.
Sorry.
Nope,
Continue,
that's fine.
continue.
I tried.
So these are end of year expectations where we want the students. So if we look at math, it's nice growth. We see green going up and our reds squishing and our yellows kind of squishing in as red comes to yellow and yellow comes to red. Don't forget in kindergarten, there is no red because there is no grade beneath kindergarten, so you will never see a red in kindergarten. But they had some really nice growth there. One thing I did forget to mention, I went through all the students who were scoring in the red category. 85% of all those students have been identified and are already receiving Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions, and another 4% are kind of on the cusp where they're not receiving them yet, but they are either in the process of getting tested or we've just identified them. So for reading.
Do we ask questions as we go, or do you want to wait to the end?
However you would like to. If you feel
No,
like
you're the presenter. What's more comfortable for you?
if you feel like you can't hold on to your question, I will take questions.
I can hold. But I wasn't sure how you wanted to go. So go.
I only say that because I do forget my questions sometimes.
I write mine down.
Excellent. For reading, green is increasing at each grade level, except for the 7th grade. So that is a growth issue that Ms. Talon and I have already spoken about. We will be doing a root cause analysis as to why that growth didn't happen in 7th grade reading. But we did see it in all the other grades. We saw huge increases in grades 1 and grade 3. So, for instance, in grade 3, we went from 51 to 70%, which is a 19% increase in proficiency. Grade 1 went from 16 to 63, which is a 47% increase. Again, these are composite scores, so it's the overall score of all the domains put together. If you flip the page, I always like to look at this. This is us against state and national iReady. So, in the math, we are up by the nation, we outscored them by 13 points, and by state, 3 points. And our red is 12% less than what the nation is, and 2% less than what the state is. Reading, we're above proficiency for national by 10% and state by 5%. And again, the red national is, we are 10% lower and 3% lower. So in other words, we look better against the national standards or the state standards, in other words. The next page is one of my favorites. It's some nice growth data. If we look at quadrants, we have low performance, high growth, high performance, high growth, low performance, low growth, and high performance, low growth. We always like to see students up in the top 2 portions of the quadrant. Those are the high growth, whether it be high performing or low performing. If you have low performing students, but they're consistently in the high growth, they're going to pop over to high proficiency eventually. And obviously the high performing students, if they have high growth, will stay there. So if we're looking at math, all of our grade levels are in the high performance, but half of them are in the high growth and half are in the low growth. So kind of, I would take a look at 3, 4, and 7 as to see why their growth, even though they're highly performing, their growth is a little bit lower than we wanted to see. We do know, like in 7th grade, their teacher was out for I think it was 7 weeks, a long period of time, had a substitute. So I am already meeting with Mrs. Titus about looking at learning gaps and using the iReady for planning and how to fill those gaps as she's sort of marching forward with regular curriculum. And on the other side, if you look at 8th grade this year, the 8th grade started with their teacher, who is Ms. Matthews. If you remember last year, she didn't come until I think it was like mid-October, which really impacts student learning. So this year they've had her for a full year, which is great. Reading, kind of the same thing. We're all in the high performance. Everybody who's above that line in high growth, which is a great trajectory for, making proficiency in grade level achievements. 7th grade, again, we'll be doing a root cause analysis as to why they didn't grow as much as we had anticipated them. All right, flip the page. So the next few pages are the domains that looks really busy because I had to squish them all. And I had the proficiency numbers down there. But this one, you'll see it has blue, green, yellow, and red. The blue is exceeding where the green is right where they're supposed to be for grade level. I just thought it was kind of cool to look at who is overachieving and who is on par. So if we look at domain-specific data, on the second page, just to let you know, I did do a legend for both of them. So you know what like NO means? That means numbers and operations. So numbers and operations and algebraic thinking are the domains that are taught throughout trimesters 1 and 2 is what we start with. Trimester 2, we have a sprinkling of geometry standards that are taught explicitly. The domain for measurement and data was a little bit surprising kind of in each grade level. We don't explicitly teach that in the first 2 trimesters, even though you'll see we did really well. But these standards are typically not standalone, and they're taught in other disciplines like science and art and STEAM, and actually some other UAs. So we can surmise that the knowledge and skills are being transferred from those other courses that students are taking and are impacting our measurement and data for the domains. In reading, we see phonemic awareness and phonics progresses as expected. As students progress through grade levels, you'll see the proficiency rates go up and up and up until they test out. And it happens, so it's great to see that. As in past years, there are struggles in the domains of vocabulary and comprehension, specifically informational text. We have discussed that before. Vocabulary knowledge is assisted by multiple exposures, background knowledge. Other courses like science and social studies can really help with the background knowledge and the vocabulary that's explicitly being taught. All right. And come out of those domains. In the last page of the small paper is a look at the cohort for New Hampshire SAS scores for us. So starting in 2019 all the way to 2024. If you look at 2019 for 3rd grade, that'd be 2024 for 8th grade this year. I put colors in there so you can kind of follow those grades. In 2020 was COVID, so we don't have any data. So you can see, for instance, that cohort was 51 for ELA in 2019, 2021 is 51. Then we pop up to 65, 56, and 64. Same thing with the math. And all the way to the right are the state percentages. We're either right above it or right underneath it for both ELA and math. The science scores are right below it, grade 5 being 34% and grade 8 47%, and the state averages are in the mid-30s. So if we dig into SAS a little bit, which is your big papers, I formatted it a little bit differently this year for you. It's a little bit easier to look at, where green is where we are strong, and red is where our challenges are. So I won't read what I wrote in here, but I wrote all our strengths and all our challenges over a 3-year period of time. And what I found was that in math, our strengths are solving problems with all 4 operations, place value, and arithmetic to algebraic expressions. So as with the I-ready domains above, numbers and operations and algebraic thinking are taught in the first 2 trimesters, and that knowledge is used throughout the year. Our challenges are fractions and volume and area and surface area. Typically, volume and area and surface area are taught at the end of the year, sometimes after we take the SAS. This year, it probably will be a little bit after because they've made the window in May. They used to extend it so we could take the SAS all the way into June, but this year we had to finish it in May. And also, we knew this was kind of an issue for the lower grades as well. So the math committee met last summer, and we kind of changed and modified the scope and sequence a little bit. And we sprinkle some geometry throughout the year where it makes sense so students are exposed to it before going into the SAS. For reading, our strengths were point of view and cause and effect, and our challenges were central message of ideas. So when you're looking at SAS, reading and writing go together. In the clusters of ELA, we have craft and structure and key ideas and details for reading. And for writing, it's the organization and purpose and evidence and elaboration. So what we found when looking at the SAS data and writing is that we needed to look back at the reading scores. And across the grade levels, the organization and purpose was relatively more proficient than evidence and elaboration, which goes with our reading score. So that is very true. So organization and purpose is like cause and effect, point of view, organizational structure, like a thesis and paragraph and sentencing. Where evidence and elaboration is use of sources and facts, main ideas expressing with ideas and academic vocabulary. So across the grade, completing more modulars, which we are working towards, would help students not only learn how questions are asked, but how to use the tools of the SAS product itself. And we also found that the state, specifically in writing, they don't have a lot of exemplars to use. So I'm working on getting a bank of questions and prompts together for each grade level so they can use those moving forward a little bit more. And that's it.
Thank you. All right, I'll open up for questions from the board. I had one on, just to start, I know the rest of the board does as well, but on this chart, the iReady performance data, the second page that compares the national, there's the salmon, like red color, I don't know, salmon red color. What is, because you list out green, yellow, red, what is this? I can kind of guess, I can guess what the salmon is.
Sure.
Differentiators, explanation.
Absolutely. So that's all like in the below category, but the lighter red, the pinky, is one grade level below, where the red is more than one grade level below.
For end of year expectations, yes?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
Do you know when you and Elizabeth will, it's hard to tell, like, what the root cause is of the 7th grade reading, but like, when you have a timeline of when you'll be able to identify what maybe some of the contributors to that and what the
She and I just
plan
met
will be?
right before vacation, so we need to meet again to find out some times to meet together, probably a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I wonder, I'll look, but do you know off the top of your head, or Deanna, do you know when Elizabeth is next? Or when we can find out what that is? Yeah, I don't know if Sarah, it's when you're next, or if it's when Elizabeth is next. I can look that up too.
I don't know off the top of my head, but
Hopefully, by the time she's next, we can hear what that is.
I think we went actually in order, which would,
Okay.
she would,
Yeah, she's a couple weeks then.
yeah.
Can
would
she jump
probably-
up?
Yeah.
Can she jump up to the next meeting and report out on this next meeting?
I don't know if they'll be ready. I think it's better if we
Wait.
give them more time.
Okay. I like to piggyback on
Yes, agreed.
those, because if I look at, and I could be reading this wrong, because I'm not the brightest guy, but when I look at the cohort data, both in reading and in math, when kids hit 7th grade, things kind of get rough on both sides of the ball. And I'm just curious why that is. And I understand with math, it seems like there's a pretty specific reason. There's an absence, and we had, so that's understandable. But still, if you look back to 7th grade last year, when there wasn't supposedly that problem, there was also a problem. So 7th grade seems to be an issue on both sides. So why, And I guess maybe it could be, I don't know, when you look at the iReady data compared to the state and the national, we're doing well in the aggregate, but I was wondering if we could break that out. How is 7th grade doing?
Actually, I have that information. I can email it to you
That'd be
tomorrow.
awesome. Thanks.
Yep.
Like, just to see if it's
Absolutely.
where that stands. Because if it's a systemic problem, that's one of the beauties of iReady, right? Is that we said that we want to be able to call that out and say, okay, we know there's an issue right there.
Right.
Now how do we fix it?
Which domain, right?
Yep.
it's not pointing fingers, it's just like, we know there's
Oh,
something
yeah,
going on
absolutely.
there. So how do we get in there and fix it, so.
And seventh grade math has been your grade level that's had the most turnover. So
Okay,
you had somebody in there last year for the first time, so then you're looking at 3 years with 3 different instructors. So that's one of the factors.
so then, in the very least, we know that retention, when we're talking about paying our educators well, and retaining those, this is an argument, that here's a real way that it impacts. Because you worry that 7th grade, you're only 1 year of corrective time where you can get the kids into high school, and all of a sudden you're making all new challenges once they jump to Oyster River, Dover, or Co-Brown, and learning a whole new system. So, but again, this goes back, when I look at the kids hitting 7th grade, both in reading and in math, there's an issue there, so.
Just so
I
we-
think that might come out in our root cause analysis when we start talking about it.
That's what I'm thinking, but and the only reason why I want to push up her reading out on it would be like, okay, we still have time to help these kids before they, right? And
She's here April 1st.
Yes, and we only have the one meeting,
That's what I thought.
reorganization meeting next time anyway.
okay,
So she's-
that would be great.
Next full meeting.
And that was my question that I remembered all the way to the end.
And you held their question in the whole time.
I can be
And
polite.
she's actually sending a letter out to 7th grade parents with talking about the preparedness for Algebra 1 in 8th grade and the entrance test, and then how to prepare for it, and, acknowledging the gap that we've had there and some suggestions for how to fill that
Okay,
deficit.
thank you.
Other questions or comments? So this is a lot of data, and honestly, still, I feel like I need to really sit and live with this data a little bit more to fully grasp it. But just anecdotally, what about this data is really keeping you up at night? What is really stressing you out that you aren't sure how we're going to overcome that? Because I know we've got a solid plan. It sounds like everything's on top of it, but it's not possible to look at this much data and these many bodies and say that there's not something. So what would that be?
Honestly, I would say I would like to see the yellows be a little bit smaller at this point in time of the year. Not in kindergarten, because remember, we don't have reds. But I would like that to have squeezed a little bit more. And the other thing is really figuring out with middle school, how to motivate them to keep moving and keep chugging, and keep giving us valid data. And I know, Elizabeth has done a wonderful job this year of that. So I think our data's more valid this year, but that keeps me up too. Is it valid, or is it kids, middle schoolers kind of going,
Middle
I don't
schoolers
want
not
to
being
do.
motivated.
No, and it's.
Yeah, so
they
that
take it
that
one-
keeps me up, how do we motivate them? How do we do that so we can have the valid data, so that we can make informed decisions and move that forward?
Because they take it one more time, yeah?
One more time,
When is that?
June.
June? Because that's the one that really is challenging, because the kids are because the rumor went around last year, or the year before, that this was not required, and then
Yeah.
they found out that they had to, and the kids were just
Well,
going.
it's also challenging because they've just taken SAS, right?
Right.
So it's test after test, and it's really tough for especially third through, because they have the SAS.
What do you think, so I don't know all the exact data, but for this point in the year, the yellow is a lot bigger than we've seen in the past. That's my unscientific, I don't have exacts, but we don't usually see it quite as big, especially in such specific grades. So did you have any insight into why that might be, beyond obviously 7th grade, poor 7th grade, picking on 7th grade, but beyond that, 7th grade's not the only grade that has some numbers that I think are
Yep.
more concerning than they usually are at this point. So what do you have any contributing factors that you think might have played a role in that?
So I think, this is our second year of math implementation, and whenever you're implementing a new program, it's the first year's, it's a little bit rougher than usual, in the second year, and then the third year it comes around. And they really, for the first 2 years, last year and this year, have been really focusing on math implementation. So I think that's a big contributing factor. I do know next year, the third year, I've been saying this, 3-4 years is when you really see those increases happen. for at least the math.
Okay, so you feel like next year the gains will be
Yep,
more
it takes,
rapid?
it's 3 to 5 years really, to really see that happen. Because as the students, like in kindergarten, come up, so 3 years will be, K1, 2, it'll be second grade. They'll have the structure, the vocabulary, and the knowledge moving forward, so.
Any?
So, very digestible.
Yeah, thank
This is, this is your best one.
Thank you for that. I'll go, now that I can see, I couldn't see
Making
the
it
little one.
understandable for an idiot like me, it's great.
Yes,
Thank you.
and I'm sorry, it was 6 pages, but I just have.
No,
a lot
it's-
to
No,
say.
that's good. No, that's good.
So,
Too much data is never too much data.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
okay, you're welcome.
Now we'll roll up our.
And if you think of anything along the way, contact Deanna or contact me, it doesn't matter. I can, if you feel like you have a question, please ask.
All right. Yeah.
But we knew that.
Okay. So moving on to, sorry, I had a.
No, but, sorry.
No, go
But
ahead.
but that, looking at the data for the 7th grade, I understood, like, after COVID, there was gonna be a dive, right? But what's sad about those kids are, they had made progress, and then they hit 7th grade, and they fall. So it's like, they were going like this, and then it was like, boom. So we gotta help those kids, so.
And we have every confidence. I know that our staff are phenomenal. I know that they were asking, I believe math was an area that they were asking for additional PD. And I think that the data supports that they recognize that there's
Yeah.
a need, and they are addressing that need head on by saying we want to address the student need better by further training to understand the system. So I think that that's great. I'm looking forward to the gains that we
Yeah,
make.
for sure. Like, in no means is this meant to be a call out of staff in the 7th grade area. It's more of just, we know there's a problem there, so how do we fix it, right?
Well, and I
What
think-
can we all do to help?
I think a lot of what we've talked about, especially with reading, right? It's every time you implement a new program, you're learning the program. We really need to dig into how do you teach numeracy? How do you, it's the methodology behind just like the science of reading information. Like, yes, you have to learn the program, and it takes time for the students as well as the staff. There's not as much information out there in reading. It's getting so much better, and we had teachers go to OGAP training a few years ago, and they were just like, wow, we've learned so much. But again, it's staff retention. Like, it's a critical shortage area across the state. It has been for years. So we need to hang on to our math department and give them those opportunities to learn together. Also, that's the other hard part about our middle school is they're on an island. They're by themselves.
Right.
And, and then your shortage of subs. Like, it's just this snowball effect.
Right, yeah.
I would love to be able to. In the years past, we would have this reliable group of substitutes who would come in, so we could bring consultants in and trainers and give teachers those opportunities. And we've just really struggled for the last 4 or 5 years to do that. Like, the time isn't there, and the opportunity to really dig in on their teaching, their practice of teaching it's just been lost. So I feel like we're making some inroads, but we've had to, I'm sure some of them weren't too thrilled when I told them we were hijacking their critical team time. Like, okay, like, data's important, but if we don't know how to change that data in the right trajectory, we need to take some time to make sure they all have the same understanding of what it means to teach a certain domain or subject area or content. And again, it's not, they've all heard me say this, nobody's like pointing fingers or being critical.
Right.
We have a range of ages of teachers, and we all went to different universities. And for me, the most eye-opening thing over the last few weeks is we've always had a very large number of interns come and work with our district and be mentored by our teachers. And I was able to ask these students who are not yet teachers, right? They're 1 semester away. So how did your college prepare you to teach reading? They're like, they didn't. So they're learning more sitting in our 45-minute discussions with their supervising teachers and our reading specialists than their own college prep program has taught them. So it's a shortfall of the system, right? The bigger picture.
That's the college standards.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Ruth Morton McDonald, a professor at UNH in the reading department, and there are more requirements for pre-service teachers to teach social studies than there is reading.
Really?
So it's
Fascinating.
it is a, it's
It's
a
an issue.
systemic issue.
Yep. So we get them, right? They're these eager, wonderful young teachers, and they will tell you, we don't know how to teach reading. And I experienced that as a young educator. I remember 6 years into my career going, oh my gosh, I have broken so many children. Because until you go and seek that information, right? I went off and got Wilson Reading trained, Lips trained, Orton Gillingham trained, and all of a sudden the light bulb went off, and I thought, well, thank goodness I was teaching high school and these kids already knew how to read, because I myself, as an educator, didn't truly know because my teacher prep program didn't prepare me appropriately. So it's not a Barrington issue. It's a bigger, systemic issue. So we just have to keep chipping away, and first of all, ensuring that what was important to me this year was that we all had the same knowledge base and understanding, so that the other issue is kids go from grade level to grade level. So even within a grade, and then grade level to grade level, depending on the teacher's prep program or what they've done for PD or their own interest, right? It's so varied, and we need consistency, and we need everybody to be on the same page with their knowledge and what we're teaching our kids. So we're making
Progress,
some,
yeah,
it's
making
progress, it's great progress. And people really want to absorb and learn and know and support, and so it's good, it feels good, there's good energy around it. Not good energy when you look at your data and you're like, oh, but I am feeling more confident, positive, and hopeful that in the next few years, we're gonna really start to see it change, because, we've had this conversation for many years now, and it's getting more challenging with the shortage. So,
Yeah, those are all really great points, yeah.
Well, hopefully the voters, as they've been generous over the years, will approve our contract yet again, and we will yet again be able to be competitive with our salaries so we can retain these wonderful teachers. So.
So we'll move on to everyone's favorite part of the night, policies.
I'm gonna do my best. There's been some changes.
It's a lot.
So, we'll start with first read. ACR2 was in, so if it looks familiar to you, it's because it is. It was supposed to be on the list as a second read tonight. However, I'm telling you, every time I open my email, there's another change. So we pulled it out of second read back into first read to give it another update just from a couple weeks ago. So they have pulled out and required that the non-discrimination officer and the Title IX roles need to be separate. So that is really the substantive change there. ACE is a true first read for tonight. Procedural safeguards, non-discrimination on the basis of disability. This, to be completely honest, should have been updated quite some time ago. We updated it per NHSBA. The district's was terribly outdated. It's a pretty straightforward, not a long policy, but it was, the one we had on the books was ancient and did not have the proper title. So that is a required in place for her first read there. ACN, accommodation of lactation needs, just like ACR2, it was supposed to be on the books tonight for a second read, pulled it back to a first. The change there was instead of having the wording of needs to say mothers with lactation needs, not persons with lactation needs. So that is just some changes that are happening state and nationwide currently. So those are the changes
Oh, got it.
to first read. Do we want to tackle those before I go into second?
Yeah, I'd like to do them separate, and then just on ACE, it might just be the copy that I have, and I know that we always go over the templates before they get in there, but can we just make sure that we don't have the NHSBA
Yes.
disclaimers?
Yeah, we noticed
Or the
that
legal, okay,
today.
okay,
yeah.
thank you, yeah. Thank you. All right,
I'll make a motion to accept for first read ACR 2, ACE, and ACN.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move on to second read.
Okay, so second read, right now we have ACF, Food and Nutrition Services, anti-discrimination and civil rights complaints on for a second read. I'm going to ask that we take that off the table for a second read and send it back to policy. We just received Thursday or Friday last week an update from NHSBA. So given that the packet had already been published, I didn't want to make any changes to that without it going back to policy. So that one, my recommendation would be we take that right off the table. Other than that one, the rest of those policies listed for second read have not realized any changes since the board reviewed them at the last meeting for first read.
All right. So I guess I'm making a motion to move ACF back to policy, and then to accept for second read, starting with EHR 1, right?
Starting with GBGBA.
Oh, those can go for second. Got it.
Which is triply coded.
All right, GBGBA, JLCEA, and KFD, as well as EH-R1, ADC, and ADB:GBEC, as well as DAF, and the aptly named DI for audits for second read.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And much like ACF that we sent back to policy committee, I suspect and actually would encourage us to, on our website, have an in-committee folder within all of our policy folders currently, because the changes are happening so quickly. I want to make sure we are staying on top of them the best that we can, while still, not rescinding them or not, making any substantive changes until we get the proper guidance. So at policy committee, we discussed today just taking a swift kind of look through our folders to pull out those policies that we know we are awaiting executive order resolution and recommendations from NHSBA on how to move forward. And so we should have a back to, an in-process, in-committee folder within each of those categories as we manage them. So I did not print and add more paper because we're not talking about it tonight, but JBAB would be one that I would recommend, just like ACF, just get sent back to policy committee for now.
So making a motion to, as well as ACF and ACR, move JBAB to policy as well.
Okay, can I get a second?
Before I second, we still, or before a second, I didn't get to chime in before Garth. We still have the state law, gender identity is a protected class, and we are still not discriminating on the basis of
Correct.
gender identity.
Exactly. And that's a lot of what's happening is they're just pulling policies apart. So it's not that protections are going away. I don't want anybody to be concerned or misread that. We just have to make sure the procedures are housed in the proper sections and are worded appropriately.
I think there was like a technical advisory from the DOE to do this.
Correct.
So, yes, it was highly suggested we do this.
Yeah.
I second bringing policy JBAB back to committee.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And can I, well, speaking out of turn, I think the community at large should be ready for a lot of this.
Agreed.
Because, for better or for worse, no matter how you feel about the administrations and both the state and national level, things are happening awfully quickly, and everyone at the local level is trying to adjust as best they can and as fast as they can, but
With the concern that our federal funds are at risk.
Right.
And so that's why I think a lot of districts right now are putting policy in committee while we await to see the proper direction to go.
so, it seems.
But make no mistake that these actions are only a reflection of our commitment to ensure the safety and protection of all of our students. This board is always, and our administration has always been steadfast in a student-first approach. And so we want everyone to feel safe and secure in that that behavior will continue, that attitude will continue, student-first, so.
And certainly reach out if you
Yes.
have questions or concerns, absolutely.
So, before we conclude, this is the second opportunity for public comment. All eyes back to the one person here, okay?
Just make something up.
I know, now you have to.
I'm happy to see how the sausage is made.
Okay. I will also then yield the time to those that are online, our online attendees. Again, utilizing the raise your hand feature. All right, well, I didn't feel like I gave enough time, but,
I think you do.
so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Aye.